I tell you, Marlon, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this chat with the expectation that a lot of folks would listen to this chat and also move this chat forward.
Mhm.
Because as you mentioned, two things can occur at the same time.
Mhm.
We know the guy was an evil being, but no human being deserves to be sniped away. No human being. That's what we believe. I am a progressive. I assume you are, but I'm a progressive.
I am. I would, and I'm a Democrat for the time being. We'll see how that
Right.
goes. But
So,
yeah, I would
so
consider myself a progressive for
So
sure.
we believe in humanity. We believe in, we don't want, in fact, the fight that we have, the things that we support are not for one group or the other. The things we support is for everybody. And whether people like what we support or not, guess what? They enjoy it when they get it. We fought for Social Security.
Absolutely.
Republicans and Democrats love it. We fought for the minimum wage. Republicans and Democrats love it. We fought for SNAP. They love it. All of them love it. So we don't fight for things that are not for everybody. But that said, that's not what we're about. It turns out that this morning I started the program, and as usual, you would have some conservatives that called into the program. And they were trying to spin the narrative that MSNBC and ABC and CBS and all the others are spinning. And that narrative is that somehow this guy wanted civil discourse. This guy wanted conversations. And what I try to explain is a conversation that goes on to a campus and tell women you are there to get a man, and after that have children and take care of the family. That's no conversation. A conversation that says, when I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, and this is where I say this materially affects us.
Exactly.
You and I have been used to, because of our age, being followed in stores. You and I are key. You as a stock analyst and all the great things in the financial sector. Your intellect has been questioned because of your pigmentation. As an engineer, my qualifications have been questioned because of pigmentation. And we know that the younger people have been growing out of those fallacies. The younger people have been starting to realize that was hogwash. I want to know your talent. I want to know what you're able to accomplish. The young people have been finding that we have a Charlie Kirk, rest his soul. We have a Charlie Kirk that was there to indoctrinate the next generation on the lies that actually marginalized people like you and me, people like women that are listening to this right now, people like the underprivileged listening and watching us right now. That is his legacy. And for them to try to rewrite his legacy on MSNBC and Fox News, it does a disservice to all of us, because what it does is it deifies somebody that has definitely caused more harm in our political system than not. And if we start to look at this as an embrace of this person for fear that people are going to say, you are supporting what happened to him, two things can be right at the same time. No, we don't support murder. No, we don't support harm. But no, don't we support harming other people as well, or demeaning women, etc.
So one of the things that like I said yesterday, I spent a lot of time just because guys like Charlie Kirk, I tend to just sort of remove them from my, from my feed, so to speak. And occasionally he'll pop up on YouTube, when somebody, as they say, dunks on him or whatever. So I wanted to go back and just sort of remind myself of what kind of guy we're talking about. And I ran across, the article, but I remember seeing the video of an event that he did. I think it was in Idaho. And, there Q&A, and he gets to a guy, and the guy says something along the lines of, well, this is going to be an unusual question. And the subject appeared to be, stop the steal, right? That the election was stolen. That was the subject. And this guy's question to Charlie Kirk was, when do we get to start killing these folks? How many times are we going to let them steal elections before we can start killing? To his credit, Charlie Kirk said, hey, I'm going to denounce that. That was his response.
Good.
But then he continued, and instead of telling that guy how wrong that way of thinking was, he said, see, that's just what they want you to do. They
Mm-hmm.
want you to go out and do something so they can take your guns from you. Not that you don't need to do that ever. No conversation like the one we're having. He immediately turned the conversation to blame Democrats, progressive, the left, however you want to look at it. It's them that's making you feel this way. So then I go on. Next thing I run across, he's on a campus, and it's actually a young Black lady that is asking him why it is he's pushing for Derek Chauvin, the guy who, murdered George Floyd. He's been found guilty of this. So there it is. And he proceeded to justify this man being killed in the way that he was. He said this guy, that was allowed for him to put his knee on the man's neck. And if he hadn't been a drug addict, he wouldn't have died. So this man should be released from prison. So I don't know how other people feel about this, but to me, that just foments a level of disdain for the other, hatred. And it's, he comes across with this baby face like he's a really nice guy. And and what they're trying to do now, and I heard on MSNBC, a fellow who was at the scene, and he must have been, this was in Utah. He
Mm-hmm.
was I think a former state senator, may have been a current state senator. And you would have thought he was talking about the sweetest guy on earth.
Yeah, you're
This
talking
is on
about
MSNBC.
Mm-hmm. I
And,
saw it.
I got it. Look, maybe you were friends with him, but we have to recognize the things that are being said ultimately lead to this kind of upheaval, one way or the other. And this is what got the guy on MSNBC fired yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you can't, I don't care left, right, center, whatever. If you're going around and you're picking on the people who are the weakest and the most marginalized and the poorest. And in the meantime, by the way, I pointed this out, it's been a couple of months ago, and it was in a totally different context. In 2015, Charlie Kirk's little nonprofit was not that big. And I just looked because the point I was making was how the right dumps money on guys like Charlie Kirk and elevates this kind of performative hate, whatever you want to say. And it went from, I don't know, maybe 6 figures of income, low 6 figures. And then last year,
Nine figures.
It's in the millions. I mean,
Hundreds of millions.
Oh yeah, it's up there. And, it's money coming from all the places you can imagine. And then you have guys like us that are out here, with our little megaphones shouting into the abyss, right? And I mean, this is, it to me is almost the unfortunate, sort of the end of where this always ends up.
I want to read something that Mac Nelly Torres put out here. She said, did you read this obit in the New York Times? I'm a journalist and currently independent, and I'm stunned at the awful way the media is covering all this. It is unethical and so wrong. And I assume she's talking about the glorification, the deification that they're doing of this guy. This guy was a promoter of hate. But then again, this is the same media that gives Donald Trump plausibility. So, here is a guy that is that a judge has called a rapist, that's been convicted several times, that has grabbed on women's stuff, that have done all these things, and we treat him like a normal human being. The mainstream media does. So we have to, by now, and this is self-serving, but to both of us. Yesterday, when that guy went on MSNBC and immediately told all the MSNBC listeners that most of the over the last several decades, centuries, most of think that most of the political violence came from the left. Independent media had to correct that immediately, and that's why I came out and said, "Hey, let me get the information." Starting from slavery reconstruction, the labor movement, and all of those have subcategories.
Well, not all the lynchings.
Right. The modern right.
I mean, where's he coming from with this?
Yes, the modern right-wing extremists. Even recently, we're not even talking about, well, it used to be that way. it continues being that way. And then he has a list of the portions from the left. Very small. We have things like the Weather Underground that used to create a lot of bombs, but make sure the bombs didn't kill people. The anarchist violence in the late 19th and early 20th century. And present day, we just have a few. Antifa, even though some of Antifa hasn't really been Antifa, proven that it's actually been the right acting as whom they want to call Antifa. Now, I want to give a big kudos to our brother at I think it's Sateo, because what he did as they continued to whoops, like that happened again. And the reason I want to do that is what he did is he came out with a list, and a list of the left wing, or I should say, a list of the right wing attacks. And he came out and he said, please don't forget Melissa Hartman, the senator, or the state lawmaker Hartman, and her husband Mark. Don't forget about the attempted assassination of Josh Shapiro. Don't forget the 4 Democratic elected officials that the shootings of. Don't forget Nancy Pelosi and her husband. Don't forget what they tried to do to Mike Pence. Don't forget that they murdered Judge Esther Salas's son. Don't forget that they tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Don't forget of the pipe bombs for Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Don't forget about Heather Heyer, who they drove and killed. And you go ahead and you can bring the list down.
I mean, this is
all
like
these
recent history.
Crickets.
You know, the other part of that, man, if I can just interject, is this. Don't forget the President of the United States.
Yes.
We're talking about a guy who said, if I don't win, maybe I need to get my Second Amendment people involved.
There you go.
Okay? He's calling people vermin. He's practically quoting Mein Kampf.
Yes.
Okay? He's holding. Do you remember during the run up to the election, they literally held an event in Madison Square Garden that looked like the Nazi event that happened back in the 20s, 30s, whenever. And it's like, are y'all kidding me right now?
It was such, and you know, the funny thing about it, when I saw the Madison Square Garden event, and then I watched the coverage in the mainstream media, they normalized it.
They believe that their role is to just observe, you know, like you see in these science fiction movies where there's this person from some galaxy and they're just there to observe and not interject anything into it. And I have a different view of what the media's job is. You know, I think it should be about what is true, not just repeating what is said. Okay. Yeah, you quote somebody, and then I think there's an obligation to say something, not just stand there and let it happen.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.